I thought it was going to be like Friday, or it was Friday yesterday, and I couldn't even believe it then. It's already the weekend. I can believe it. But no, tonight we are working on rose seeds yet again. For anybody that doesn't know, my name is Jeff, and I hybridize roses, breed them, and grow them from seed. And I come on here on YouTube to be able to kind of share my passion, my love for roses. And specifically the hybridizing of them and growing them from seed because it's so much fun. And being able to share that with everybody and hopefully inspire other people to give it a try themselves, because roses kind of have a scary almost stigma surrounded by them, to begin with. And then when you start talking about, pollination and rose seeds and all that, it can be really, really intimidating. So that's why I, come on my lives and make, videos and shorts here on YouTube. It's just kind of take that some of that scariness away, and to show others, how fun and exciting it can be, and to find a love for growing roses from seeds. So tonight I have a bunch of rose seeds. Welcome in. How are you doing today? Feel free to say hi and ask questions if you want. But tonight I have a bunch of seeds that I've taken out of the fridge. I'm in my greenhouse. But I have baggies of rose seeds outdoors, so we're going to be bringing in one baggie at a time so we can keep them cold, right? And checking on the seeds. We will be replacing paper towels if there is mold growing on them, which I did grab only the bags that had mold on them, so you can see what that looks like. And hopefully, if there's any seeds that have germinated while they are in the fridge, then we will go ahead and get those seeds planted. But really cool is I was on a live last night here, and I was showing one of my rose seedlings that had germinated in the fridge, and I got it planted. But it is much larger today. So if you were in here last night and you saw that, you could barely see the green, and it's getting quite big. But you can see the at the very end of that is the seed shell. So it'll soften up and kind of break apart, but I'm really, really happy with how well it's growing. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a baggie here, and they're just welcome in. How are you? So the rose seeds are in a moist paper towel in a Ziploc baggie, and I have them all labeled here, and I have the date written down that to get them planted. So rose seeds do need to be cold stratified, which is just basically a really fancy term of the seeds needing to go through a winter, right? So they need to stay damp and they need to be cool for the duration of what normally a winter is, so up to 3 months. And sometimes the seeds will welcome in. How are you doing? Thanks for coming in. Feel free to ask any questions if you'd like. That's what I'm here for, is to answer questions and to help inspire and motivate people to grow roses from seed themselves. But the 12 weeks, if the seed has not germinated while it is in the fridge, then I will go ahead and keep the seeds in the fridge until the 12-week mark, and then I will go ahead and take all the seeds out and I'll get them planted. And usually those seeds I'll start seeing growth anywhere from about 2 to maybe 3 weeks. It just depends on the genetics of the seed and how quick they actually grow. So I'm bringing this out because you can already see there's some mold growing on the paper towel. So I'm just going to switch out the paper towel, get a new paper towel, get it damp, transfer the seeds over, and I will also check to see if the seed has germinated while I'm looking at them, and this one has not. But you can use a white paper towel. I use the blue shop towels. This year's the first year I've used this. I had a friend tell me that they prefer the blue towels over just the white kitchen, paper towels that we use, for a couple different reasons. So I figured that I would give it a try and see how it works for me, see if there's any big difference before I kind of, talk about blue towels and why you should or should not use them. I'm never going to give information if I don't know it myself, if I haven't experienced it firsthand myself, right? So, I'm just taking a look at that. So I just have a cup of water here, and I do have some hydrogen peroxide, 3% hydrogen peroxide. It costs like $1, $2, something like that. Really, really cheap. But it is beneficial to have some hydrogen peroxide, and I just put just a very small amount of the hydrogen peroxide in the water that I use to dampen my paper towel in. The hydrogen peroxide does kind of help eliminate some of the mold and the fungal spores that may be present on the seed, on the paper towel, in the water, in the air. The spores are all over, right? So the hydrogen peroxide just kind of helps sanitize a little bit. You're still going to get mold growth on your paper towel, so do expect that. But I have noticed that you don't get as much and it doesn't grow as fast. Rose seeds do have quite thick shells, so if they're exposed to some mold, they'll be able to handle it. They'll be able to handle a little bit without it causing problems. But if you don't check on your seed and you just leave it in the fridge for 12 weeks straight and just allow mold to grow, all over it, then it can cause your seed to end up rotting. So that's why I do suggest checking on your seeds and switching out the paper towels if you need to, at least once every couple of weeks. That's going to help, that's going to help with that. But yeah, you can see the mold growing there, and you can see where the seed was, but not enough to cause any kind of harm on it. So I just put the paper towel back, folded the seed in the paper towel, and put it back into the plastic baggie, and it's going to go back into the fridge. And then I have the date 3/4, so March 4th is the 12-week, is the date that this seed would, that these seeds would have been in the fridge for 12 weeks, right? So March 4th, if this one seed, and this one anyway, does not germinate before March 4th, then I know that I can take this baggie out and get the seed planted on the 4th of March. So just grabbing some more here. So the reason why, and welcome in everybody, feel free to say hi in the comments or any kind of questions or whatever. It does kind of help me know what to talk about, right? I know that, I have people in here, but if the comments are, pretty quiet, sometimes I don't necessarily know what to talk about, right? So, feel free to say hi, where you're from, if you grow roses, and if you do, how many, and if you have an interest in possibly growing roses from seed as well. So, this one here, this one seed, there's mold on all of them. I purposely found paper towels that have mold on them, so that way I can show you what it looks like, what to expect, because it is going to happen. But no germination on the seed, so I just got a new paper towel, putting it right back into the plastic baggie. Hopefully tonight we can find some seeds that have germinated. That'd be really, really cool. I would be really excited about that, about showing that to you. But anyway, so here is another one, and you can see that the mold, there's quite a bit of different kinds. But this is the most common that I have noticed, is you see the dark gray or black spots. But sometimes you can see some, like a little bit of white fuzz. I've seen almost like a yellow crust almost looking on there. And then I've also seen either pink or really light red spots as well, as opposed to the gray or black. But all of that is just, you know, some mold. And I'm just grabbing some more here. Here's another baggie. And then any of them that has a tag like this, these are a result of, these seeds are a result of my own deliberate crossing. So I took the pollen from one variety of flower, collected that, and then I applied that pollen onto a flower of another variety. And then I tagged it so then I know what the parentage is of these seeds. I know who the mother and the father is of these seeds. So I put the tag on the stem just underneath the flower right after I pollinate it, and that tag stays right underneath the underneath that flower, you know, underneath the rose hip while it's you know, growing. And when it ripens, when I remove and harvest the fruit, the hip, which I'll show you here. So this is what rose hips look like. So this is the fruit of the rose. So if you don't deadhead your rose and the flower was properly pollinated and it grows viable seeds, you'll end up with rose hips that look like this. And if you've heard of like rose hip jelly, rose hip oil, rose hip tea, I know that rose hip oils, I believe it's oils, are used a lot in like, you know, facial creams, moisturizers, serums, stuff like that. But this is a rose hip. And there are seeds in here. I cut one open last night, but when you cut a rose hip and you look inside, you can see, you know, there's seeds in there, there's fibers, but that's what we get. And then after we get them cleaned up, then we can put them in the moist paper towel, and then we put them through winter. In most cases, we put them in a moist paper towel and put them in the refrigerator, not the freezer. The freezer is a little bit too cold for a lot of seeds, but the refrigerator is a perfect temperature for seeds. It's cold enough to where they feel like they have gone through a winter, right? So rose seeds will not grow unless they've been cold stratified, right? Rose seeds have to feel like winter has come, gone, and then they will feel safe when it starts warming up. They'll feel safe to start growing, right? Because where they live in the wild in nature, there's winters, right? And if they start growing in the late fall when the seeds are ready, they're not going to be old or mature enough to be able to survive the freezing temperatures of winter. So they purposely have that kind of built into them to where they won't grow until they feel that winter has come and gone. So when we have the seeds, they don't know that, you know, that we are in, you know, that we can keep them safe from freezing temperatures. They don't know that. So we kind of have to make them feel like they've gone through a winter. So placing them in our refrigerator is going to you know, make them feel like they're going through a winter. It's a mild winter, but it's still one that is that makes them feel that cold. But if we put them in the freezer, it's a little bit too cold, and it can cause the seeds, you know, that permanent frozen state can damage the life that's inside of the seed. So it doesn't necessarily need to be that cold. So no germination on those seeds, but I did go ahead and switch out the paper towels so you can see all the mold that was growing on there. And now they are in a nice clean new paper towel that's just damp from this cup of water that just has a tiny bit of hydrogen peroxide in it. A little bit of hydrogen peroxide does not harm the seed at all. But it does really help with the control some of that mold growth. You don't get as much, and it doesn't grow as fast. So it is a good, you know, it's only a couple dollars too, hydrogen peroxide. All right, so here is one where I used a white paper towel. And I'm just checking the seeds. I do not see any germination, but they've only been in little over a month, so it's a little bit too early for them yet, for any of them to start germinating. Seeds that germinate in the fridge, while they're still in the fridge, I call those the impatient seeds, right? They don't care that, that it's still winter time. They're like, I'm ready to grow, so I'm doing it. And at that point, that's why we also want to check on our seeds, at least once every couple of weeks. But if we do notice any of those impatient seeds, then we can go ahead and take them out of the fridge, because at that point they no longer need to be in the fridge. They actually need to be planted and in warmer temperatures so they can continue to grow. If we let them, if we keep them in the fridge for too long after they've germinated, then they're not going to receive any of the light that they need, or the temperatures that they need. So you can have failed seedlings while they're still in the fridge. Thank you so much for the like. I appreciate that. But here is a white paper towel with the mold on there. So a little bit easier to tell. Well, I don't know. A little bit easier to tell, to see the yeah, Dot, welcome in. Yes, this is a live. Yep, absolutely. So, feel free to say hi or ask questions or whatever. I am keeping my eye open on the comments. So, feel free to chat away, and we can talk while I'm doing this. And it'll also help me, kind of figure out, what to talk about myself. But those seeds, their 12 weeks will be up on the 22nd of March. So they still have got a ways to go. Let's see, Dot, I put the whole rose buds in the fridge. Will they be okay? Should I take them out and separate them? Yes, so let me take this outside so it stays cool. It's not freezing temperatures outside, but it's much warmer than in my greenhouse, which is currently at 70 degrees. So ripe rose hip looks like this. So it's going to be, they initially start out because the flower was right up here, right? So this was like the center of the flower, where the bees and, all the other pollinators go to. And if it was pollinated, the seeds start growing right underneath in the rose hip, and as the seeds develop and grow, the rose hip will swell and grow as well. And when the seeds are viable, your rose hip will usually turn a bright color, usually red or orange, and then that indicates to us that the seeds are ready for harvest, that they are ready to, there's viable life inside of the seeds. So when you cut, so you do want to cut open the rose hip. So here is one. You can see, there's seeds inside, and there are all of those fibers. So those fibers actually, if they're present around the seed, they will inhibit your seeds from actually properly going through a cold stratification, and also inhibits them from germinating. So the reason why they're in a fruit is because in the wild, the rose wants the fruit that contain the seeds to be consumed, so the seeds can be dropped off in different locations, in other locations, right? So as the rose hip and the seeds pass through the digestive system of whatever animal that ingested the hip, those fibers are kind of washed away from the seed, and then when it's deposited, then it knows, it knows that it's not next to, its mother plant, right? Oh no, you're all good, Dot. So I'm just getting the seeds out here so you can see what it looks like. So those fibers, it is important that we get the seeds out of the rose hip, so then that way we can wash and rinse the seeds, get all of those fibers off of the seed before we put them into the fridge. That way they can feel that cold, right? For whatever reason, the seeds don't feel that cold when the rose fibers are present on the seed, and you will have a much lower germination rate with seeds that weren't taken out of the rose hip versus the ones that were. So let me So here are the seeds. Sorry if it's a little blurry, but I don't know if you can see, but you know, there's a lot of rose fibers that are still on there. Here is that piece. See if I can get it to that rose hip. But you can see those fibers in there. So we just want the seeds. So what I like to do is once I get the seeds out of the rose hip, I will put them in a like a metal strainer, and I will run water from, you know, the sink underneath over the seeds, and I'll kind of scrub the seeds against the metal strainer to get any rose hip flesh that may be stuck on the seed, to rinse all of those fibers off. So then I just have the seed and I don't have any, you know, any other, you know, like foreign materials on the rose seeds. And that is going to give me a much higher chance of my seeds germinating for me. So yeah, if you do have rose hips, excuse me, in the refrigerator, I would suggest getting them out, cutting the rose hip open, getting the seeds out, and then you can get the seeds back into the fridge. And, you know, they also need to stay moist as well. So a lot of times, you know, the inside of a rose hip can dry out, but on the other hand too, the inside of the rose hip can end up starting to rot, and your seeds can rot that are left in a rose hip as well. So, you know, and then, you know, you just take scissors, whatever. Some people use knives. I don't like using knives because I don't have as much control. And, you know, it just kind of scares me. You know, they're round. So if you're trying to cut with a knife, you know, they can kind of roll out, slip out, and, you know, you don't want to cut yourself. You know, so I cut about 3/4 of the way in. I don't have to worry about cutting into seeds. They are hard. They move out of the way. So you don't have to worry about that. And you just kind of break apart. And then you can see all the seeds, but all those fibers are going to do nothing but prevent your rose seeds from germinating and growing. They could be completely viable, but they don't feel that they've gone through a winter, right? Or feel that they're, you know, far enough away to where they can grow without, you know, competing against siblings or their parents, things like that. But yeah, so I would suggest doing that, getting your seeds out of the rose hips, and then placing them in moist paper towels. You know, you want to keep your seeds moist, but not, you know, not super wet. If it's too wet, then they can rot on you. But if they're too dry, you don't want them to be dry either. So you have more control over, you know, the moisture of your seeds, you know, if they're out of the rose hip. But really good question. I will see how they look. Thank you. Also still have a bunch of rose hips, but they are air dried. Is it too late for me to remove those seeds and use them even though I dried them? Nope, absolutely not. So I have rose seeds that I got from hips. I think these are going on the 4th year now. And every year I'm just planting a little bit. That way I can see how long seeds stay good for, you know, over a period of time. But these seeds are completely dry. So once I got them out of the hip, I got them washed and sterilized, and then I just put them in this plastic baggie, and they've just been hanging out here. And so far, as of last year anyway, I'm still getting some of them to grow. So, you know, hopefully this year, you know, I'll get, you know, some more. I already got some seeds out of here, but, you know, hopefully I can get some more to grow from here. But yeah, absolutely. So even if the seeds have been dried, you absolutely can still, you know, get them to grow. A lot of my rose hips that I harvest that are ready earlier in the fall, I will get the seeds out and I will get them dried. I also, and I don't right now, but on my website, I do sell rose seeds as well, from roses that I have had very good germination rates from. So, other people can, experience that if they can't get a hold of seeds themselves. So, those seeds, I do have to make sure that they're dry prior to me shipping them out. Um, so, yeah, absolutely. But really good question. Yeah, you don't have to worry about them. Now, if they are dry, I do suggest that before you put them in between a moist paper towel and into the fridge, I do suggest soaking your seeds in water for at least like 4 hours to kind of get them to rehydrate, right? Um, and then that hydrogen peroxide that we're using, for damp, getting the paper towels damp. I also do put a little bit of hydrogen peroxide in the water that the seeds are soaking in for about like the last 15 minutes or so, just to kind of help eliminate any mold spores. But see, I just squeeze all the excess water out. The paper towel just needs to be damp. But that hydrogen peroxide will also help kind of eliminate some mold or fungal spores that may have been that may be on the seeds, after getting them out of the rose hip. Let's see. I was going to ask you if you sell them. I'm going to check that out. Thank you. You're more than welcome, Dot. Yes, I do. My name, TheRoseDude, and then the .com. I don't know if YouTube is good with that, but that .com thing on there. And then I do have a blog on there. I need to make another blog article on there. But I do have a shop option. Right now, I don't have anything for sale, so I'm out of stock for the year. But they should. I'll have more up this upcoming fall. But I think there's an option on there where you can subscribe to the website, and then I'm not one of those where I'll send a ton of newsletters or whatever out, to emails. But I will send an email out to the people who subscribe to me and say, hey, I have seeds now available. But yeah, so here's another paper towel that has the mold on it, and don't worry about this. This is completely normal. The seeds will be just fine. Just as long as we are keeping an eye on them. Just that much of mold is not going to cause our seeds to rot, right? If you leave, if you don't check on your seeds every, for the entire time that they're in the fridge, that's when you can start running into problems with, there being so much mold that your seeds did rot, or those impatient seeds that did germinate while they were in the fridge. Just they grew too much and they didn't get the light or the warmth that they needed, and they ended up failing. That's really disappointing too. Opening up a baggie and it's like, oh, they all grew, but now they're no longer with us, right? So a few different reasons why we want to check on the seeds. So I do like I do suggest. Let me show you what the seeds look like, actually. So this is what the seeds look like. And these seeds have been in the fridge for a little over a month. So you can see, the mold on the paper towel. You can see a little bit of white fuzz on a couple of the seeds, but that's completely normal. But, the seeds are, looking nice and tan or brown. They're not black. They're not, They're not rotted at all. So, you know, like with some of these that has, you know, a little bit of the white fuzz, make sure that it's fuzz and not a root growing out. But, you know, it's very, very, very apparent of what a root looks like. But what I'll do is I'll just gently, you know, kind of scrape some of that white fuzz off of the seed so it doesn't, you know, so I'm not transferring it over to the new paper towel. Yeah, and then also too, a lot of seeds are going to look different depending on what rose variety they came from, right? So, what am I doing? Huh, I got a weird notification on there. Huh, okay. You can still see me, right? Let me know if I'm still going. I had this weird message. Said resume on or something like that. Let me know if I'm still going. But yeah, depending on the rose variety that the seeds came from. Some roses make smaller seeds. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Dot. Some roses make very small seeds. Some of them make really large seeds. The color can be different with the seeds. So you know, so like these seeds that we got out of that one hip that I was showing you is a lot lighter than the ones that are on the paper towel here, but the seeds came from different seed parents, right? From two different varieties. And rose hips will also be very different too in, you know, the size, in, you know, the shape, you know, the color that they ripen. Some ripen to a bright red. Some will kind of have like a yellowish orange, you know, tint to them. And then there are some, very few, but there are some different roses that can even be like a purple or a black when they are ripe. And then I think there's a couple also as well that kind of have like little spikes on them. But, you know, out of, you know, if you're using, you know, the roses that you get out of your yard, unless you're using very specific species roses, right? More than likely you're going to have, you know, the stereotypical orange or red rose hips. But yep, I'm just transferring the seeds over here. If there's any of the seeds that, and none of them have germinated, but if any of them have a little bit of that white fuzz, I'll just, you know, just gently wipe that off on the old paper towel before I transfer it over. You know, just kind of help with that. Here's that paper towel. I'm really hoping, actually I have more people in here now, so let me get this and I'll show you. Last week I did find a seed that had germinated, and I got it, you know, I planted it, and I noticed that it was starting to emerge out of the soil yesterday, and it's quite a bit bigger today. Yesterday on my live here on YouTube, I try to go live quite often, you know, just whatever step that I'm on in the, you know, during the year is what we're doing. In June and July usually is when we're out in the garden. I'm collecting pollen and you know, pollinating the flowers themselves. So that's a lot of fun too. So if you want to see that, you know, make sure to subscribe, and it's easier for you to find my lives when I do go live. But I want to show you the seedling, what it looks like right now, so you can see what rose seedlings look like once when they initially start coming out, emerging from the soil. So you can see that coming up there on the, this is a good angle, so you can see at the very end that is the seed shell, and as the rose gets larger, it'll kind of push that seed shell off. But I call those seed shells that are on there, I call those the seedlings, they're little hats. But yeah, so that's what it looks like. And then I planted another seed that had germinated. It has not emerged from the soil yet, but hopefully we can get some more. Um, Hopefully we can find some rose seeds tonight that have some of that that has started to germinate and grow. So that way you can kind of see, that the root on it, and then we can get it planted. And then that way I'll have more to show, the next time I go live, we can start seeing that. But last year I planted 10,000 rose seeds. Now, rose seeds don't have a super high germination rate. So they're not like, zinnias or sunflowers or marigolds, where almost every single rose seed ends up growing for you. Rose seeds are quite a bit lower germination rate. Expect about, on average, about 15 to maybe 20% of your seeds to actually end up growing for you. So that's why I had 10,000 rose seeds. I ended up with right around 2,000 rose seedlings, which is still a lot. It was actually too much for me. I did find my limit. I love it. I love it so much. It seems like every year I do more and more seeds. But last year I definitely found my limit. 10,000 is definitely way too much for me. And then, also had, family health problems, and I wasn't able to stay on top and properly care for all of my seedlings. The time that I did have, it was spread out because I had so many that they all kind of suffered a little bit with my lack of care. But had I only had 100 rose seedlings, right, it would have been a lot easier for me to take care of them. So, it's all a learning experience. I don't believe in the word failure. It's not successful, but all that is you being one step closer to being successful, right? You didn't fail. You learn from it, and the next time that you attempt it, you are that much more likely to be successful or more successful, right? So, sorry, separate question. I brought a mini rose bush inside my house. Yeah, yeah. To avoid a storm, I'm in Connecticut. Is now full of new leaves, and we have 1.5 feet of snow. Will it be okay if I leave it inside now? Long term, it needs to be outside. Long term, if you do have new growth, I'm not familiar with the climate in Connecticut. It should be okay. Does it have any? Does it have any flowers on it right now? I'm almost thinking about suggesting putting it like in a garage, or if you have like a cooler, like a mud room or something. Because that new growth, you're correct in thinking that new growth is not going to do well in the cold, because it won't. But long term, your roses do not survive indoors. And it's unfortunate, because right around Valentine's Day, Christmas time, they have all the miniature roses, in pots that you can find in grocery stores and flower shops, stuff like that. But long term, they do not do well indoors. No flowers below freezing. Yeah, yeah, that's what I would do, is put it in the garage. I would. You may lose some of the you may lose that new growth, but the roses. The problem with those roses is that they are grown in greenhouses, right? So when they're in bloom and everything is during the time that we are in the winter. So where all of our outdoor roses are. Where they're already dormant. The roses that we get at the stores that are blooming, they're not dormant, right? So, if you put it in the garage, you probably will lose that new growth. but it will kind of allow it to go dormant. And then once it starts warming up outdoors, then you can move it outdoors, put it in a container, or plant it right in the ground, and it will be just fine. Perfect. Yep, yep. Yep, and just like any other rose that you have outdoors, it can start losing some of the leaves and all that, but that's just, the normal thing that roses do, as winter approaches. So, yeah, don't be, don't, you just want to make sure that the soil stays moist. But don't worry. Don't worry if it starts losing some of the leaves. It's just going dormant, and you're just kind of getting it on track with your climate and the rest of your roses or plants that you have outdoors. So yeah, you'll plant. It's large now, too big to keep moving. Thank you. Yeah, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. I I think I'm going to. I think because it's Valentine's Day, I'm going to. I think start working on making a video on care for those roses that we get for Valentine's Day that are already in bloom. Kind of maybe buy a few different ones and care for them differently. And then that way we can kind of, and then at the end, see what the results are of, what we did or didn't do for the roses, how successful they were in the long run. I think that'd be kind of fun. Let me know if that would be a video that would be interesting for you to watch. All right. So these seeds ended up getting quite a bit of mold, but these seeds that I got here, but not so much mold to where I'm worried about it, right? But these seeds, I did get it from a friend, sent me seeds from a variety of roses I don't have, but I have noticed that there's a lot more mold on those seeds compared to mine. So I don't know if when getting them out, if the seeds were sterilized, with soaking in water with hydrogen peroxide or not. I'm gonna have to ask my friend. I'm not trying to make them look bad or anything, but I'm gonna have to ask and see if there was any kind of sanitation procedure done on these seeds, because if not, then that just kind of reconfirms, why I do suggest soaking your seeds a little bit in water with a tiny bit of hydrogen peroxide in it, because you don't get the mold growth as much. So yeah, awesome. Okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you, Dot. Yeah, I will. I'll get some roses. Oh, I thought that one had germinated. No. I'll get some roses for Valentine's Day. A few different ones. I'll look online and see some of the suggestions that other people or websites or articles say. Sometimes you don't get the best advice from them, but I'll try to grow a couple exactly how others tell us, and then we can kind of either confirm it to be true or unfortunately debunk it. It's super frustrating when I see people give the wrong information out. And, especially when I know that they're deliberately giving you wrong information. They're like, oh, like the ones, where online, you see people selling the blue rose seeds or black rose seeds or the rainbow rose seeds. There's no such thing as a black, a blue, or rainbow rose. Hate to break it to you, but those do not exist. If you see pictures of blue, black, or rainbow roses, they are photoshopped or AI generated now. So if you get seeds from them, I'd be very cautious about that, because you're not going to get blue, black, or rainbow. So I don't know, necessarily. I wouldn't know the how high of a quality of seed that you are getting from them, because if they're already knowingly tricking you into promising you flowers of colors that you're not going to get, how high quality are the seeds, even if they are rose seeds. And I have seen some of their directions of what to do with the seeds once you get them, and some of them are just flat out wrong. Where they're like, oh, once you get them, you plant them, and they start growing in, like, 2 weeks, and it's like, whoa, 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 they need to be cold stratified, they need to be refrigerated, they have to go through a winter first. You can't just get seeds in the mail and plant them and they will not grow for you, right? And it's super frustrating for me, because that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm here, is to inspire people, to share my passion for it. And knowing that there's, people out there that are giving you false information just for the sake of, just trying to get a quick buck from you, and not caring about your end result, knowing that you're not going to get anything to grow. It's very frustrating for me, because, my main goal for this is for you to actually be able to do this successfully and have fun with it. And, a lot of times, if people, if you get these, seeds and get incorrect information, or low quality seeds, and your result is a lot different than what you were expecting, you're going to be discouraged, right? You're going to be like, oh, well, I tried it once, it didn't work out for me. It's a lot harder than what I thought. You place the blame on yourself in one way or another, right? And then you lose interest. You're like, no, not for me. I didn't get anything from it. But, in reality, nothing was your fault. You were just given, wrong information, low quality product, whatever it may be. But if you got, good quality seeds, if you got the correct information, you would have had a much better experience, and ended up getting good results, and you absolutely would have fallen in love with it. So it's frustrating for me, seeing that there's people out there that are deliberately giving false information, just for, subscribers or views, or, orders, getting money from you. It's like, oh, so frustrating. Like even the seeds that I sell online, I don't make a profit on it. Believe me, I just did my taxes. I don't make money on doing it, right? But that's not my goal. My goal is for you to enjoy, doing this, right? So, I'm never going to be rich and famous doing this, but that's not my intention. So, and I think it, and it's more beneficial for me. I really love and enjoy doing this, and if I don't look at it as a business, I still keep my love for it. People that watch and learn from me, can see that I'm genuine about it, right? I'm not just, doing this for, as a salesman. Let's see. I'm 52 years old, and I have only heard of stratifying from you. Thank you. Yeah, you're more than welcome. Yep, cold stratification. So I do have a video here on YouTube. It's about 20 minutes long, but it's like a full in-depth video, step by step, on how to cold stratify rose seeds. So if you have 20 minutes of free time or whatever, you're more than welcome to take a look at that. It's actually a pretty popular video. A lot of people have been watching that. So I'm really glad that that video has helped a lot of people out, you know, in that aspect. But yeah, so rose seeds do need to be, if you get rose seeds, even if they're high quality, and you plant them without putting them through winter or cold stratifying them, they're not going to grow for you, and they could still be completely viable. And you know, people will throw them away, and it's like, no, just put them in the refrigerator for 3 months, and then you can get them to grow for you. And they you know, they could still be really good seed. I'm really hoping that we can find some seeds that have germinated. There's another one with some of the mold on them. Do roses only grow in cold climates? No, they can grow. There's, you know, I have quite a few friends that live like in LA, you know, where, you know, it doesn't get cold at all. The roses actually never really go dormant. Quite a few friends that live in, or rose friends that live in Australia as well. Same kind of thing, to where their gardens, their roses don't experience necessarily any kind of cold weather, and they grow year round. But they, the gardeners, what they'll do is they'll kind of not really get them dormant, but they kind of do like a reset. So they'll do their hard pruning, you know, like usually right around January. So, you know, in the middle of winter. And that what it does is it kind of restarts and refreshes the roses as they go. But no, they don't need to. They don't need to be only in cold climates. All right. 2 more bags here. I have a lot more. I have about 150 baggies. Only a couple more from this. These seeds came from a deliberate cross. So the seed parent, the mother, anytime that you see plants and you kind of see, you know, like the parentage of it, and, you know, it's like a name and then it has X and then another name. The first one in front of the X is always the seed parent, so the mother, right? And then after the X, the name or plant or cultivar, variety, whatever, after the X is the pollen parent, or the father. So anytime that you look at, you know, plant tags of any sort, and you see, you know, something X, something else, the first one is the mother, and the second name is the father, right? So the seed parent on this came from one of my own hybrids, and my iPad. I have a picture of that rose on my iPad, but unfortunately I need to charge it. So maybe if I go live tomorrow, I'll show it. But I was showing pictures last night. But the seed parent was from my own hybrids, one of my favorite ones actually. And then I took pollen from a miniature rose called Coffee Bean, where it's kind of like a dark red, maybe a little bit of a brown tint to it. Miniature rose, really, really beautiful color on it. But I bred or crossed those 2 varieties together, and then ended up with these seeds. And it's so funny that usually if I'm you know, doing my seeds and swapping out the paper towels and all that, if I'm not live, that's when I find all the seeds. You know, like almost every single baggie that I open up, I have seeds that germinate. And you know, when I go live, my luck, you know, I can't find one. So, you know, but that's just, you know, the luck that I have, I guess. But, you know, that's all right. I have one more bag after this one, and then I'll have to run into the garage, because I do have so many baggies with rose seeds in them. I ended up last year getting a mini fridge. So I have that in the garage, and my mini fridge, I call that my seed fridge. That's where I put all my seeds in, during the winter time. And then, it's nice to have, I can throw, bottled water, Gatorades, sodas, whatever, in there during the summertime. But that is primarily my seed fridge. So I'll just have to run over there and grab some more baggies, and then we can continue. But 30 seconds maybe, if that. So not too bad. Here's the other one with the mold on there. Let's see. I didn't know you did lives. I only just happened to get a notification today. Yeah, I do lives. I was doing them quite a bit last year, without getting too personal. But my spouse ended up was diagnosed in May with lung cancer. So I wasn't doing lives up until maybe a couple months ago. I started getting back into doing lives and making more videos. But we had a lobectomy, I think, where they removed part of the lung surgically, and then we just finished up with chemotherapy, and we're just about ready to start a year's worth of immunotherapy. So that family always comes first, right? So we're that was that's where my majority of and all of my focus was this summer and fall. Thank you so much for likes. And but we're getting better with that. And I honestly, I missed making videos and doing lives. So I'm getting back into doing it now. So I bet I'm really excited about doing these. That way I can share with you everything. Anybody that's new coming in, the rose seeds. So you can see that one right there that's starting to emerge. That's what roses look like right when they start popping up from the ground. This is about 2 days old. It started coming up yesterday. So I'm really excited about that. In the lives I'll be showing that, and hopefully many more. And then really excited about showing you when the seedlings will start blooming. Rose seedlings can bloom as early as like 6 weeks. Why is this one stuck? Okay. But yeah, they can bloom as early as 6 weeks after germinating and emerging up from the soil. A lot of it depends on the genetics of the seeds. Rose seeds are just like people, so they're all going to be completely genetically unique and individual. And that's why I like growing roses from seed, because you don't necessarily know what you're going to get, right? Because they're all going to be different. But when you do have one, knowing that you have a rose that nobody else in the world has ever had, does have, or never will have again in the future, you have a 100% unique rose genetically. And the only way that you can get more plants of that one rose is by cloning it, which is by cuttings. So you take the cutting of the rose and you either attach it to the rootstock of another rose, which is grafting, or you get it to, you do a cutting and allow it to grow its own roots. And then you will have an exact clone of that. So, you go to a nursery and you see, all these potted roses of the same variety, right? They all came from a cutting of a cutting of a cutting of a cutting of one original plant. But if you get seeds from that one that one rose, even if it is the pollen and the seed parent, so it was self-pollinated, right? None of that seeds will be genetically identical to the parent. So that's why I like, rose seeds, and because you don't know what you're going to get. You can cross hybridize a red rose with another red rose, and you can get seedlings that are not red. You can get some that are pink, some that are white, some that are yellow, maybe purple, and you just don't know what you're going to get until after it grows. And that's the really exciting part of it too. And that's just one aspect. That's just one trait, is color of flowers. How many petals, the fragrance, what do the leaves look like? There's so many different factors. Is it cold hardy? Is it, pest or disease resistant? There's a lot of different traits, other than just the color of the flower itself. This one was also a deliberate cross from mine, from one of my own hybrids, and then is the seed parent, and then a variety called Metabolus. Beautiful rose, by the way. Metabolus is, but I took the pollen from Metabolus and applied it onto the flower of one of my hybrids that I've done in the past. Just to try to combine different traits and all that kind of fun stuff. So I'm gonna run into the garage, grab some more baggies. So I'll be right back. Give me about 20, I don't even think it'll be 30 seconds. So actually time me and let me know how long it took me. But I will be right back. All right, and time. How long did that take me to run there and back? All right. That one got a lot of mold. It looks still pretty good. It's not, there's some tan on it, but it did get pretty moldy. But looks like it should be fine. So we shall see. So Dot and everybody else in here, you're more than welcome to type in the comments. But I know Dot, you have that one miniature rose, but how many roses do you have outdoors? And everybody else, let me know how many roses you currently are growing, whether it's none right now. I have a lot of people that are just starting out. I actually have quite a few people that tell me, hey, I don't really have an interest in growing roses from seed myself, but I find the process to be very fascinating. So I have quite a few followers that watch, the journey of these seeds, just because they just enjoy watching these seeds. Dot Goddess has 18 seconds. Not bad, not bad. I'll have to let people know next time that I run into that issue. Okay, someone timed it before, and it takes me 18 seconds to get to the garage and back. So I'll be back in 18 seconds. All right. I'm really hoping I can find a seed. 2 yellow, 2 coral. I like the coral color roses. One of my hybrids, my iPad is not, needs a charge, so I can't even show you. But one of my hybrids is a coral color. It initially starts out like a deep coral, so like an orangey pink color. And as the flower ages, it fades into a pale pink. And it's an absolutely stunning rose. But that was a rose that that I hybridized myself. So this year I'm going to be taking cuttings of it so I can get more plants, more than just the one. So I do think that it does have some promise to it. So I have some friends that live in different climates that I'm going to send the roses to, so they can grow that rose in their own garden, and then they can let me know, how well, how it grows in their garden and in their specific climate, so I can, see if it's, worth trying to get that, commercially, that variety of rose commercially available for other people to enjoy in their own yards. But that'd be kind of neat, because if I do have do end up with the rose that is really high quality and that grows really well in different climates, that's when I can register the rose and I can give it a name. I just think that would be so cool. That's like the ultimate goal, right? Is just having a rose that, that I hybridized, and there's, it was mass produced, and, and there's a lot of people that have, my rose in their garden. That's like the ultimate dream for me. So, Eric, hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Yeah, I'm back live. I've been doing lives a little bit more often. I actually did one last night, and it actually did pretty good. So, and I really enjoyed myself. So I'm like, you know what? I'm wanting to do it again. So, and tonight's been good too. But yeah, good to see you, Eric. My good friend Eric there, and then Dot, so beautiful. I would make my hedges full of roses if I get good at this, and you will. It's a lot easier than what you think. You absolutely will, Dot. And Pat the Rose, hey, how you doing? Another friend. Well, Dot's a friend too, but Eric and Pat the Rose, I've known for quite some time. Eric, I've known. Correct me if I'm wrong, Eric. Little over a year now. And then Path to Rose. Oh man, too long. But we're probably getting close to what, 3 years maybe that we've known each other. Way too long. There is my sarcasm. And then Dot, we are one day. Dorothy Rose, so you won't forget my name. Okay, Dorothy. Okay, perfect. I will remember that. Yeah, about a year, a little over a year, Eric. Hopefully you've been doing good, Eric. I know I saw you give me a message on the other platform. I just haven't responded back. We just got done with we just got done with all of the rounds of chemotherapy, and now we are just about ready to start immunotherapy now. So we're heading in the right direction. We still have our good days and our bad days, but we're having a lot more good days now than what we were in the past. So that's good. Oh, since Path to Rose and Eric are here is a rose seedling that emerged yesterday, and it has like quadrupled in size today. So you can see, I call those hats. Where you still have a little bit of the seed shell that's on there, but it'll split off and break open. And if it doesn't, then when it gets a little bit larger, then I'll be able to get it off there. But it's fine like that. Sometimes they have those little hats on there. So yeah, really excited about that. And I have another seed that germinated in the fridge, and I planted it. It has not come up yet, so still waiting for that. And I've been hoping that tonight that we run across more seeds that germinated. Last night on my live, I didn't find any. And then tonight, we haven't found any yet, but, you know, we're still crossing our fingers and, you know, never say never. But these I do try to rotate. You know, I didn't get all of these seeds in the fridge at the same time. I kind of staggered it out, you know, and that way I'm not, you know, like spending one whole day pulling my hair out trying to plant thousands of seeds all in one day. But these seeds are haven't been in the fridge nearly as long as the ones that I've already checked, where we did get some germination from. So once I get through those and start over again, I expect, you know, there'll be quite a few. I'm sure there'll be quite a few seeds that have germinated more. That one, no, that one didn't rot. It just wasn't cleaned. Wasn't clean enough. So, what is everybody up to tonight? It is Saturday night. Hanging out with friends, or just laying in bed, hanging out, watching YouTube. Imagine some of you are, you know, hanging out with friends and like, oh yeah, yeah, this is what I do on a Saturday night. Look at this guy. He's in his greenhouse talking about his rose seeds. Excitement of my weekend. The highlight of my weekend right here. Just as long as they say I'm cute, then that's all I care about. Oh, there's my sarcasm again. But yeah, these seeds came from a rose that I got last year. So these are my first year testing these seeds out. And that rose is called Peaches and Cream. It is like a peach color, and then it has like white stripes in it. Really, really beautiful rose. The only problem that I've noticed with that rose is because where I live in eastern Washington, it gets really hot. And my roses get more than full sun, right? They get beyond full sun. Because full sun is any plant that gets direct sunlight for at least 6 hours. So that's what full sunlight means. You know, if you're looking at plants and you see, you know, light requirements, full sun, that's what it means, is it gets direct sunlight for at least 6 hours during the day. But my roses get plenty of light, but because of all the light and the hot heat, that peaches and cream, the colors kind of fade into each other, so I don't really see a whole lot of that striping because they fade. A lot of times yellow roses will do that as well. If they are grown in hot temperatures, a lot of yellow or gold roses will kind of fade to a very light yellow or even a white. So, you know, something to think about. I've always suggested, you know, like if you are looking at, Dorothy, this makes me very happy. I'm glad I found you. You're lovely. You're awesome as well, Dorothy. You're awesome as well. Everybody in here is. But yeah, if you're looking for possible, you know, new roses or more varieties to add to your collection in your yard, if you have a rose garden nearby you, I always suggest going to that rose garden and taking a look and seeing what varieties they have there, because roses can grow very different and look very different depending on where they are grown. So, you know, you can look at, you know, roses in pictures, but, always, if you see pictures of flowers online, right? Those are going to be the best of the best. If I have a rose bush that has, 20 blooms on it, I'm going to take a picture and post a picture of the best looking flower, right? But that's in my climate. The color may be, more bold or not as bold as what it would be in your garden, right? So if you have a local garden, or you can get in touch with somebody that has a rose garden that knows what the varieties are, go there and, take a look at what the varieties look like, when they are grown in your climate. Um, so, like a lot of times I live, fairly close to Spokane, Washington. So I like to go to the Rose Garden in Spokane, and, rose gardens will always have, like, or they should anyway, like a little sign saying what the variety of rose that it is. So, I always go there and I have my phone with me, and if there's roses that I really like, different varieties, I'll take a picture of the flower and, a picture of the sign, to remind me of what the variety is. And a lot of times, the picture that I took of that flower versus pictures of that same variety that I find online can be quite different. There's a rose called, Double Delight, where it's white and then the edges of the petals are red. Absolutely stunning, beautiful rose. And if you're, one of the best fragrant roses, so I highly, would suggest taking a look into that. But Double Delight, it grows well where I live, but I don't get the white with the red edges. It is so hot, that the red kind of bleeds into the white part of the petal. So my Double Delight is not white and red. It is just kind of this weird pink, spotted, splotchy pink rose. But it still has a fragrance, so I'm not complaining too much. But, that's just kind of my whole point is, if, if I got that rose, specifically just for that white and red, edging those colors, I would have been very disappointed, right? Because it just doesn't do that here. And the Double Delight in Spokane, at the Rose Garden, also has that messy, blotchy pink color to it as well. So that's just, how Double Delight grows in my area. Okay, so let's all cross our fingers together. I think if we collectively cross our fingers for the next baggie to have a seed that germinates, I think that might be the trick. That might be the trick. Okay. Ooh, and actually, I'm thinking maybe. So the seed parent, is Whimsy, which is a miniature rose, pink miniature rose with white. And then the pollen parent is from one of my hybrids. But Whimsy that is one of the seeds that I do have available for sale when they're available. Right now I don't have any. But Whimsy is, a, a rose that I sell at Seeds, online, because, the germination rate is really high. And I do know that the seeds from Whimsy a lot of them can be those impatient seeds where they can, germinate while they're still in the fridge. So no. Okay. it was worth a shot, right? It was worth a shot. But, I mean, we're still what, 5, 6 weeks away from it out of the 12 weeks. So it's just about halfway through. So a little bit too early. Darn it. I was so hoping. I probably just jinxed myself doing that, Oh, well, what do you do? Well, we get the seeds and we transfer them onto a clean paper towel. Wipe off some of the fuzzy white mold that may be on the seed. Actually, nope. Sorry, I get excited. This one is germinating. This one has cracked and it has started to germinate. It is really, really small. I'm so excited. This is my favorite. This is my absolutely favorite part. Oh, Eric, you're going? Oh, no, you're not going. Okay. Okay. Can you see just that tiny little white right on the edge? That is the very beginning of a root. Oh my God, I'm so excited. And then, I don't know if you can see, but the seed, yeah, you can see a little bit. The seed actually starts to crack as well. So when the seed starts cracking like that, and you see that little white bump, this is, I know, I'm like, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. So, this, okay, I need to be careful with this. I'm getting so excited. Okay. This is why I do this. This right here is why I do this, and this is why I love it so much, and this is why I make videos and do lives. So I can share my excitement and my love. This is why. This is what makes it fun. Oh, I'm so excited. So what I'm doing right now is I'm taking a little bit of a deeper look at the other seeds. Make sure that I'm not missing out on any of the others, because initially I did not see that first one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the ones that haven't germinated yet. They haven't germinated, so I'm still putting those seeds back into the fridge because their 12 weeks is not up until the 2nd of March. But the one seed, I'm glad that you're having fun watching this. But this one seed we are going to get planted. But what did I tell you? What did I tell you? So that's why I'm if you watch any of my videos, I always say, the best way to learn is to experiment, to get to know each one of your roses individually, right? Whimsy, the seed parent of this, I knew Whimsy and the seeds of Whimsy more on an individual basis, right? So even before I opened this up and looked at it, I told you, okay, I may have something that germinated from this because I know Whimsy makes a lot of viable seeds, and I know that there are seeds because I've done it in the past. I've worked with it. I experimented. Oh, I wonder what the seeds do from this rose, right? But I knew that the seeds tend to germinate while they're still in the fridge, right? As opposed to some of my other roses. But I wouldn't have known that unless I tried, right? So, all my videos, it's like, use what you have, try as many different combinations, of cross hybrids, try to get seeds from every single variety that you have. and try different methods. Try lots of different things, because that's how you're going to learn, and that's how you're going to be more successful in the future, right? But I was right with that whimsy. I'm like, hey, I have a good chance at maybe getting finding a seed that germinated, and I did. So and I'm not saying that to I'm not saying that to brag or anything like that, but that just proves a point that experimenting, doing testing, um, you know using what you have and using everything that you have is going to give you you're going to learn so much more from that, and moving forward, that's just going to make you a lot more successful and a lot more confident, right? um, all right, so we are going to get this seed planted. So you can see I have two seeds that germinated while they were in the fridge. I planted both of them. One has not come up yet, has not emerged from the soil, but you can see the other one that has. And this one seed that we just found, I'm so glad that I was able to find this with you guys. I'll show you one more time. So that little, where is it? That little white bump right at the end there. You can see the seed kind of cracking, splitting open, and that little white bump right there is the very, very start of this of the root. So it no longer needs to be in the fridge, right? It's starting to grow. It wants to be in springtime, so we're going to allow it to be in springtime. So we're getting them out of the fridge. We have them in the greenhouse. You can, if it's warm enough outside for you, when they do that, you can have them outdoors. But rose seeds once you plant them, you want to have them at least anywhere from 50 to 70 degrees. I prefer right around the 70 degrees, a little bit warmer, a little bit faster they're going to grow. But people have success, planting their seeds initially at 50 degrees. So, keep that in mind. And then, you can always start your rose seeds indoors. The one thing with indoors is that you may need to get supplemental lighting. They may not get enough light while they are indoors. So, a grow light, or at least put them in a very bright window. And then once the danger of frost has passed, then you can move your seedlings outdoors, and and they'll continue to grow outdoors for you. But you do want to make sure that you don't put your seedlings outdoors when it's still really, really cold, right? Freezing temperatures will just do away with any seedlings that you would have, right? So I like to use a pen to just kind of make a little hole in the soil there, and about 1/4 of an inch deep. So I just kind of put the pen in there, kind of widen that up, and then with the seed, I'm just going to drop it in. I try to make it to where the root is facing down, but if I don't, it'll figure it out, right? So you don't have to worry about it too much, about how you placed your seed or any of that. But if you're able to, just try to drop the root down and hope for the best, because when we're planting seeds that haven't germinated yet, we don't know which direction the roots are coming out. They're going to figure it out. The roots are going to grow down, and then the cotyledon, the leaf part, is going to figure out, it's going to grow away from gravity. But if we can plant it knowing it already, help them out maybe a little bit with that. So what zone is Eric? Eric, I believe, is in the south. Eric can, in a warm temperature, actually I know where Eric lives, but I'll let Eric tell you where he lives if he'd like. But in an area where it doesn't really get really cold. Not like here in Washington. Okay, so I did bring this bag in here because this is a deliberate cross. And I am going to write on a tag where we planted the seed. I'm going to write the parentage on there, so when it does grow, then I will know the parents of that rose. And if it's a good quality rose, and hopefully it is, then get it registered, then I can, let people know, hey, the parentage of the rose is this, right? So I just have a tag. I have like 3 boxes of like thousands of tags. That's how many I grow or would like to grow. And then permanent marker. So this is a really good tip. So I used to use, I'm so happy. Oh, that's why I do this. Oh my God. The most exciting part of growing roses, of hybridizing of them, everything. The most exciting part is seeing a seed germinate. Hands down, my favorite, absolute favorite part of the year of everything is what we just saw. I'm more excited about this than even seeing my very first flower from my rose seedlings. That's my second favorite. But that's by far my favorite thing. I'm so glad that you guys were here to experience that with me. But anyway, I used to use Sharpie permanent markers, but those are water-based, and I found that they would fade very, very quickly when they're outdoors, from the sun, from water, they're exposed to the outdoor weather, right? And I read that oil-based permanent markers work a lot better. So this is a oil-based permanent marker. I started using this last year, and every single tag that I used the oil based permanent marker on, I still can read. There's no fading on it whatsoever. So I will say that, it's backwards. I don't know how to do that, but it's deco color. I think I got it like Hobby Lobby or something like that. But it does say oil based. So if you are, writing anything down in permanent marker and it's staying outdoors, I would suggest getting oil based marker. And it's not really that much more expensive, but there's nothing more frustrating than, having a ton of tags that you wrote down on a Sharpie. You wrote it down because you want to keep track of what it is, right? The name or parentage in my case, things like that. There was a purpose of why you tagged it, right? There's nothing more deflating than going out and looking at the tag, to read it, and it's blank, right? It's just like, oh, are you kidding me, right? So oil-based. So I'm just writing exactly the tag that I use. This tag was placed right underneath the flower at the time that I pollinated the flower, and then I removed the tag once I harvested the hip, and then I kept it with the seeds. So I'm just going to write that parentage down on this new one and placing this in with the seed. So the first one is Whimsy, and the first name is always going to be the seed parent or the mother, right? And then the X that you see when you look at, like parentage of any kind of plants, right? X means crossed with, pretty much, right? It was crossed with, and then the second name is my own hybrid, so I'm going to write that down, and then that second name tells me who the pollen parent or the father of the rose was. So the one thing with oil-based, I will tell you, it does dry. It does take a little bit longer to dry. So, I just kind of do this, to make sure that it dries. Oh, I'm so excited though. Oh, I'm so excited. So I can almost guarantee you that next weekend when I do lives, that seed, that third seed that we just found and planted, will be up and going. So if you catch me on my live next week, I mean, I'll probably go live again tomorrow, but it won't be up tomorrow yet. Let's see. Not yet. Usually around. I'm so glad that you guys are talking to each other, making new friends. That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, Eric has been increasing his rose collection quite fast. And I know, Pat the Rose, you have quite a bit. And Eric knows this now. But there is such thing as it's called the rose bug. If you get bit by the rose bug, most people, we all start off with just one rose. It's always just one rose, and then that one rose quickly becomes 3, and then 10, and then 15, and Eric, you said 21. And unfortunately, that rose, you got bit by the rose bug, and I can almost guarantee you, Eric, that you will have more than 21 in the future. Yeah, and Pat the Rose, you have a ton too. I think the most I've had, as far as like known varieties that you buy, from nurseries or whatever, was at my last place when I lived over near Seattle. I think I had 137, 138 different roses. That's the most that I had of, garden varieties. But I would say, like, if you take into consideration of, like my rose seedlings, the most roses I've ever had was last year when I had well over 2,000 different roses. But it depends on how you want to count. How many what's worth counting, right? And it changed, all the time, as more seedlings were coming up, and then, there's some of them that just the color was bad, or they didn't show, to have good disease resistance or pest resistance, or, there have been, I have other things to do, that was going on last year as well. So, there were quite a few times where, I didn't water as much as what I should have, so I did lose some seedlings from drying out. That's just, that's life, right? Unfortunate, but it happened. So I lost some there. There were some that the flower is beautiful, but the scent was horrible. It smelled like the inside of a cat litter box. Not all roses smell good, right? The only ones that, we think of roses smelling good because, yeah, the roses that do smell good, that smell good, are going to be the ones that are going to be commercially available, right? They're not going to mass produce and sell roses that, smell like cat piss, to be, quite frank with you, right? They're not going to do that. But roses can smell bad. They have a fragrance, but they may not smell good. And that's just kind of how that is. All right, so we actually might have luck with this one as well. These seeds came from a variety called 4th of July. Very, very, this rose I get the highest germination rate from this rose, and they do tend to germinate. A lot of them do germinate while they are still in the fridge, but these have not. But like I said earlier, these have only been in for like maybe 4 weeks, so very, very early. So I'm not surprised. I think 4th of July last year, I have it written down, but I think 4th of July, I've gotten some seeds to germinate in the fridge as early as about 7 weeks in, from, the starting. 7, week 7 of 12, right? I think is the earliest I've seen the 4th of July seeds germinate while they're still in the fridge. So these still have got a ways to go, but that's that's why it's important to you know um, have a little notebook, and it's like, oh, I found this seed was doing this, or that was doing this on this day or on this week, or whatever. Then that way you can start seeing patterns. So in that way, the more you do it, the more confident you're going to be in yourself, and kind of know what to expect. All right. Actually, YouTube, I made a short. One of my haiku. I made like a little haiku series where I wrote a haiku poem, and did like, I don't know, 8 or 9 different little shorts on the journey of a rose seed, right? And these seeds are actually part of it. This bag, so I wrote down 12 weeks, for the video itself, on one of my shorts. So it's kind of fun. Do you know exactly what your best fragrant rose is? Yeah. So as far as my hybrids, no, not yet. Usually the fragrance can get stronger as the plant matures, right? So the very first flower, the color is fairly similar to what it's going to look like as a mature flower as it gets older, right? But sometimes fragrance will intensify as the plant gets more mature. So I don't know, as far as my seedlings, which one has the best sense. But as far as a known variety, Double Delight is a very good fragrant rose. But my favorite fragrant rose that I have is called Mr. Lincoln. And it's a red hybrid tea, but that's by far my favorite, fragrant rose. And Pat the Rose does have a ton of David Austin roses. All right, let's take a look. We'll probably do a couple of more here. Wow, I've been on here for 102 minutes. That's crazy. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Pat the Rose and Eric, and made a new friend, Dorothy. I don't know if Dorothy's still in here or not. But made a new friend there, and have quite a few viewers. And you're more than welcome to say hi in the comments. I know sometimes it can be a little scary, so no pressure on that whatsoever. Some people just like hanging out and just watching. So that's all right. But don't be afraid. It's funny. As much as I've done lives, I'll be honest with you, I still get nervous with it. I don't think I'll ever be completely comfortable with it, especially when I first start out. Right before I hit the start live now, I'm like, am I ready? But but I will say I feel a lot more comfortable, and I do appreciate the comments and people interacting with me. It does kind of help me kind of know what to talk about. It's very difficult if I don't have any comments. Doing a live for 102, 103 minutes. I don't know what to say necessarily. It's like I keep on repeating myself because I don't know what else to say or talk about. And it's like, okay, my people that's watching, are they new? Are they just coming in? Have they heard whatever I'm already saying? I don't know, so, it just, I'm not one, I mean, I talk to myself a lot, but I don't like, I don't listen to myself. I try to have conversations with myself, but it never, I never seem to be interested. All right, taking a look here. nothing. That's all right. Okay, peach swirl. Eric, I worked on the seeds on that earlier. I don't know if I worked on them before you got in here, but I had seeds from peach swirl that I was saying that I got that rose last year. So this is the first year working with the seeds. I did get quite a few rose hips from it. So 7 degrees in Connecticut. Oh my gosh. See, in Washington, and I think in Arizona too, in the West, we've actually been experiencing a lot warmer than usual temperatures, where the rest of the country has been, like getting hit with winter storms. You know, me here in Eastern Washington, I'm like, when is winter going to arrive? We got a tiny bit of snow, I think like maybe a dusting of snow 2 different days, but it like melted just as fast as it came down. And usually like this time of year, our lows, overnight, can be, like 10 degrees. That's normal for Eastern Washington. And the highs don't get above freezing. But like for this next week, our highs are going to be in the 50s, and our lows are like upper 30s, which is just insane for this for this time of year where we're at. So I'm hoping that we get some snow though, because we do live in wildfire country. So hopefully we do get some snow in the mountains at least. So do you remember when Washington got hit really, really hard a couple of months ago with all that flooding? The reason why it flooded is because the mountains did get quite a bit of snow, but we warmed up when all that rain came down. So, not only did we get all that rain, but that rain melted all the snow that were in the mountains. So that's what ended up causing all of those really bad floods. But, we need that snow back plus. Got 20 inches of snow. Feel free to send some of that snow my way, Dorothy. I would not mind. I don't know what the cost of shipping would be on it. Let's see. Yeah, I don't remember. I actually don't know if I smelled my peach swirl rose last year. I don't think I did. Yeah, bare hips. Yeah, well, I don't know, but I'll let you know if I got any of the seeds to grow for me. It was all open pollination. So anytime that you hear me say open pollination, that just means I did not apply the pollen to the flower. The bees or other pollinators did that for me. So I don't necessarily know. When it's open pollination, you don't necessarily know who the father of the seeds are, right? Because it could have came from anywhere. It could have came from that, the same flower, or same variety, or it could have came from a neighboring variety that you have, or a variety that the bee, visited a rose, 2 neighbors down, and applied that pollen on there. You just don't know. But that's open pollination, and there's nothing wrong with open pollination. I kind of actually like working with seeds that are a result of open pollination, just because it's like, okay, I don't know who the father of this is, so the that mystery. There's more mystery to that seed. What are these seeds going to end up, the seedlings and these roses going to look like, right? Where on the opposite is deliberate crossing, where you take the pollen from one flower and you apply it onto um, uh, another flower. That's deliberate crossing, right? You know who the mother, you know who the father is in the cross, and usually when you make that cross, you do it for a reason, right? So yeah, there's still mystery to it, but usually a lot of times you have a goal with it, so like this one, um, you, came from there's a rose called Playboy. Playboy is the pollen parent, and the seed parent is from one of my own crosses, Tuscany Superb and Olympiad, and it's really um, cold resistant. That's what I love the most about that rose. Is that its cold resistance is incredible, incredible. Um, but it's a pink, just a pink. But it's like, okay, when I cross those two roses together, I'm like, okay, I would love to have that some of that pink, but Playboy kind of is like an orangey and pink. It's blended, really beautiful rose. Um, and it doesn't have a whole lot of petals to the flower, right? Where my other one did. I'm like, okay, if I can get that cold resistance, and try to get, that pink, but maybe a little bit of orange in it, and also continually bloom. That hybrid does not, it only blooms once a year, where Playboy is continually blooms throughout the year. So, that's the thing is, when I'm combining two roses, I have a goal in mind, but when you're open pollination, it's, just like the whole thing is a mystery, and it's so much fun to see what the results are. Um, let's see. I also have gold medal rose. Same with Evelyn. Not super fragrant because it's in part shade. I didn't grow um, gold medal. It's yellow climber, right? You can train it to be a climber. Yeah, there's a lot of roses like that. I have a rose um, from David Austin called Bathsheba, and I think Path the Rose has it. I don't know if you do, Eric, or not, but Bathsheba. Um, and they classify it as a small climber. I don't know. It's to me, it's like in between a climber and a shrub. I would call it maybe. I would classify it as an unruly shrub. But it doesn't. I don't know. I love that rose though. It's my favorite David Austin rose, by the way. But as far as calling it a climber, I don't necessarily agree with calling it a climber. But it's definitely not a shrub. That's why I call it an unruly shrub, a wild shrub. Has kind of characteristics of two different types, but I wouldn't necessarily call it solely a short climber. And I don't know, Path the Rose, if you agree with me or not with Bathsheba. And anybody else that may have it, let me know what you think about Bathsheba too. What you would consider it to be. But my absolute favorite David Austin rose, I love the color. It's kind of like an apricot color. Absolutely stunning. I don't have it yet, but we'll be looking forward to getting it one day too. Yeah, definitely get it. I think that's my favorite. That BATHSHEBA. It's like an apricot color. Beautiful. It's stunning, stunning rose. I love it. But with me calling it an unruly shrub, make sure that it has enough space. I do have, kind of on a trellis. Although it doesn't like to stay just on the trellis. It does need space. So if you only have like a small area for your for a rose, Bathsheba may not be the best variety for you. It does need its space, but if you have a space for a rose, I would suggest, and you're looking at something, like a David Austin rose, I would suggest looking at Bathsheba. Beautiful, stunning rose. That one seed, I was just holding it up a little bit. I'm at the point where I'm still refusing to believe that I still need glasses, even though I do know I need glasses. I'm just not at that point yet. This next, less than a month will be my birthday, and I'm having a hard time with this birthday. This birthday I'm turning, it's going to be a different decade for me. So I'm like, I don't want to be having to deal with that and get glasses at the same time. I think that would just, send me into overload. But I had to bring that seed up a little bit closer to see if I was seeing a root or not. And if it did, then we would have been able to plant the seed, but no, not yet. This is from one of my hybrids. Most of my deliberate crosses, my hybrids that I've done in the past, is at least one of the parents. The pollen parent on this is from a shrub rose called Miracle on the Hudson. When there was that plane in New York that, they had to do an emergency landing in the Hudson River. That's what the rose is named after, Miracle on the Hudson. I'll send you a pair of them glasses, right? Thanks. At least wait until after my birthday. A little bit. Let me get accustomed to being older first, and then, you can, then I can open up, a box of glasses you sent me afterwards. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. I can't handle that much excitement all at once. You might benefit from this magnifying light that I got. I use it for doing my art, but it's a table clamp and long arm that bends and it helps with back pain. That actually that's a good idea, Dorothy. Thank you. Do you know the name of that magnifying? Actually, let me take a screenshot of that. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, are we back? Everything good? Okay, I think so. Let me know if I'm not all frozen up, because you start doing things on it and it kind of freezes up on my end. So I don't know if it, looks fine on my end, but I got it on Amazon. That would be amazing if you did that, Dorothy. Sorry, Dorothy. I would really appreciate that, because that would be beneficial, actually, to be able to look. Looks fine here. Perfect. I look fine. See? Someone told me I look fine. That's awesome. I don't know if my phone is overheating, but it kind of got a little bit darker on the screen for me. I was doing a live earlier this year, and it was pretty warm out, but my phone did overheat and shut down right in the middle of a live. But I was doing a joint live with somebody else who also does breeding. So the live did continue on with just him on it, and so I had to get my phone cooled off. I got it finally to turn back on, and then as soon as I came in back on to YouTube, I just automatically got thrown right back into the live. But he went solo for about 10 minutes. And I think that was like the first time he went live too. So I'm like, hey, crash course for you. Magnifier lamp. Okay, perfect. I will take a look at, I'm going to do another screenshot, so. Okay. Thank you for doing that, Dorothy. I really do appreciate that. Because that would be beneficial, for, if I had one right here and look, then I could see if there's any roots coming out, because there are some where it's like, okay, did I, is it just like, a piece of, the shell of the seed, that's starting to detach, from the rest of it, or is it a fiber that I didn't get washed off, or rinsed, all the way, with the seed, or, is it, a little bit of fuzz from mold that I'm seeing instead of a seed. But if, I had a magnifier right here, I could just take a look and be able to see them a lot better. That would be really, really beneficial. That's what I like about doing these lives too, It's like, I learn so much from everybody in here as well. Just like every other year, the paper towels, you'll notice that the paper towels I use they're blue. You don't need the blue ones, but I had someone that said, hey, I do seeds. They actually grow dahlia seeds, but they suggested, what's going on with this one? Is that a root? I don't know if that's a root or not. I think it might be. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I don't want to be like touching it, because if it is a root, I don't want to break it. What I'm going to do, because you can see that, I think that's a root. I'm not completely sure. Normally, if I'm not worried about space, I would plant it at this time. But because I don't have a whole lot of space, that does look like a root. Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Just because I'm so excited about it. But I was debating on putting it back into the paper towel and back into the fridge for a little bit longer. They don't have to immediately come out of the fridge, right? They can last a couple of weeks in the fridge, just starting to germinate, right? The sooner that you can get them out, the better, because they want that warmth. They want that, that sunlight, once they start emerging from the soil. But, if they're like this, you could put them back in the fridge for a week. It just grows slower, right? It's not sending up cotyledons, so it doesn't necessarily need light at that time. And the benefit of me doing that, if I had done that, I would check it, like in a couple of days or whatever, and see if it got larger or a little bit longer, for me to know. But it looking at it more, it does look like a root. So, Bright Tech Light View Magnifying Desk Lamp. You can choose your desired magnifying strength based on how far away you want to hold the lamp from your item. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Dorothy. I do really, really appreciate you taking a look at that. That is going to be very, very beneficial. I really do appreciate you for doing that. Thank you so much. You guys, everybody's so amazing. Everybody here is so amazing. Okay, so we are going to plant. Why do I keep on doing that? I keep on putting the bag out. Yep. Okay. Because I need to write down the tag. Put it in this one here. I'm going to be careful with it. Try to get the root down, face down, and then I'm just going to very carefully cover it up, lightly pack it, and then I'll have to get like a little spray bottle, and then what I'll do later on is I just mist with just plain water on here to make sure that all the soil stays damp. If I use, like a heavy watering can, then it can start washing the seed away, and deal with that. But, just a good mist a couple of times a day, or, as often as you need it. And then I do have it in a tray, this in a tray with a lid. And as you can see, I need to put some water. But if I mist some water in here too, it helps keep the humidity high as well. Right, Dorothy? You should set up your own store. And in that way, if people buy from your store, items that you suggest, you can get a commission from it. I've thought about doing something like that, but I don't know. I'm torn because it's like, yes, I have a business, but I don't want to be seen as a person that does, this just for the sake of, gaining a profit. I see a lot of, like content creators that, they give good advice and, they're fun to watch and everything, but they just, I don't know, to me can be maybe a little bit too business-like, where it's like, okay, I really enjoy what, the information that you're giving me, right? But, you also feel like a salesman. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn. With that. But I don't think, every little bit here and there, I don't think it would hurt. Just as long as it's not like, every 2 minutes saying, oh, well, look at my shop, or, oh, look at my website, or, make sure to subscribe and like and leave a comment, Although, if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe, since we're talking about it, right? Might as well, since we're talking about subscribing, make sure you subscribe. And if you haven't liked, please like. I'd appreciate it. Which I would, honestly, but no pressure. Okay, you're a good promoter. Yes, you are, Dorothy. What I want for you is a few helper students locally to help you and learn. What's the word I'm looking for? What I want for you is a few helper students locally to help you and learn. Maybe like an apprentice? Is that, am I thinking of the right word? So I'm just writing down on this tag with the oil-based permanent marker because it doesn't fade in the sun like water-based, like Sharpies do. But I'm writing down the parentage of that seed that I also wrote down on the bag. Ooh, I'm so excited. I am 95% sure that was a root. And we will know soon enough. Yeah, an apprentice. Well, I actually was in touch with a high school horticulture teacher late last year. She never got in touch with me, but I told her, I said, that I would be, I would like to send the school a bunch of my rose hips, so that way the students can, with the instructions, but that way the students in the horticulture class in the high school would be able to experience growing roses from seed as well. Um, I would love that when I was in my horticulture classes in high school, but she never got back to me. I don't know if she was expecting me to get back to her or what happened there. I may have to, when once things calm down a little bit, get back in touch with her, and um, maybe set something up for next year. You should have apprentices. They work watering and doing seeds when you are too busy helping your loved ones. You should advertise. Try again. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try again. Yeah, that would be amazing. Have my little helpers do all the watering for me. I definitely needed them last year. A lot of my rose seedlings suffered because I didn't have, because number one, I had too many, and I didn't have as much time as what I initially wanted to, taking care of them. So, the little amount of time I had was spread out because I had so many of them, right? So, my seedlings last year didn't do the best, but that's how it goes. I'm not gonna, I'm not afraid to show the, the ugly side, or my misfortunes or my mistakes or, shortcomings, I guess. I'm not afraid to show that because, we all go through that. Um, it's, it's easy, looking on, here on YouTube and looking at, people's pictures and videos of their gardens or their flowers. They purposely, not purposely in a bad way, but when you see these videos, absolutely stunning and beautiful, but they get the right time of year, and right before they did that, they made sure that everything was weeded and everything was tidied up, and everything was just perfect for that one moment, right? And there's not a whole lot of people that will show the ugly part of their gardens, or the ugly flowers, or the ones that just kind of look funky, right? You don't see a whole lot of people doing that. I'm not afraid to. So, that just makes me more of a real person, right? Because I am, and I'm not a professional rose breeder. I will always call myself a backyard rose breeder because that's what I am. And you don't have to, you know, have a ton of experience or really fancy equipment or tons and years of experience and all these fancy degrees to hybridize and breed roses. It actually is a lot easier than what you initially think. The first year that I tried it, i was I set myself a really low bar. I was just expecting to get, maybe one seedling. That's all I was hoping for, was just one rose seedling to actually end up growing for me, from, all of my seeds that I got, from cross hybridizing. And because I didn't have the confidence in myself. I was scared. It was scary. And, it seemed like, the more I researched it, there's a lot of different methods and techniques that you can do within each step. And it can be very confusing because it's like, well, this person said this, to do it this way. And then this person says, do it this way. So who's right? But, a lot of them are correct. They do the same thing, but just go about it just a little bit differently, right? But that first year, pretty much self-taught. I ended up not with just one rose seedling. I ended up with almost 100. And that's when I'm like, wow, okay, this was actually a lot easier than what I thought it would be. The whole entire process was much easier, and I shouldn't have allowed fear or my lack of self confidence in myself um, to prevent me, and it prevented me from even trying for a really long time. And I don't live with regrets. I don't believe that it does. Having regrets is not going to help anybody. So I don't regret anything, but it would have been nice if I had more confidence and wasn't scared much earlier than, when I gave it a try, because I'd be so much further now in my own journey, um, had I started a lot earlier. But, that's why I do this. That's why I do these lives and, the shorts and the long videos and these awkward lives, because it's like, I'm not, you know, charismatic like a lot of people are, and it's just, I find a lot of awkward moments, with me doing this, and I know that I say, and way too much, so it's a little awkward for me, but that's why I do it, just to try to reach out to other people that, number one, doesn't even know that roses even have seeds. But there's a lot of people out there that have thought that it would be fun to do it, but they just don't know how, or they don't think that they could, or they've tried researching and it's confusing, right? And I just want to be here to, maybe help, somebody, inspire somebody, or, just give that little bit of extra motivation that they need to make that final little jump, right? Because it is such a fun hobby. I will breed, hybridize roses and grow them from seed for the rest of my life. There's no doubt in that in my mind whatsoever. This is a hobby. This is a lifelong hobby for me, and I will continue. I will always do this. And I know that if you try it, and you are successful with it, because you will, um, you'll find a lifelong hobby that you'll absolutely love as well. So that's why I'm here. So anyway, now with now that we have the mushy part out of the way, but I've been live for 137 minutes. So that's what, 2 hours, like almost, that's over 2 hours, about 2 hours and 17 minutes, I think. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and head off for the night. Believe it or not, no, I can still talk. I can talk 24/7, no problem whatsoever. But I would like to have a cup of coffee. So anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out with me tonight. I really do appreciate, everybody hanging in, watching out. If you were just watching and you didn't leave any comments, that's completely fine. I totally get it. But the people that did, I appreciate the comments as well. Shout out to Dorothy, Pat the Rose, and Eric, and anybody that has been watching for a long time. I really do appreciate every single one of you. You guys are the reason why I do this. So I'm getting mushy again. Stop it, Jeff. Stop. Um, but anyway, so really, really had a lot of fun with all of you tonight, and we ended up finding 2 more seeds that we're able to plant, because they started to germinate while they're in the fridge. So right now, I think we're on 4 seeds so far, and I think we have a little, maybe about 1,000 to maybe 1,500 seeds. So, we're just starting out. We are just starting out. So, Eric, you have a wonderful night. I'm glad that you were able to make friends with each other as well. So, but yeah. So anyway, I'll more than likely I had a really good time tonight. So, and we have always more seeds to check, on the paper towel. So probably a good chance that I'll be live again tomorrow. I'll try to go on a little bit earlier so we can catch some of the East Coast people when they're not in bed, so they have an opportunity too. I don't know. I'm a night owl. I might, be awake at like 5, 6 in the morning my time and be like, you know what? Before I go to bed, let me go live. So I might be. I don't know. The best thing to do is to subscribe, and then I think you get notified when I do go live. So that is a benefit of that. So an idea throwing that out there. But anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you all later on. Take care.